Man, it's cold out there. It's -5. Sun's up, but it's freaking freezing. I think I'm on the mend now. I don't think going fishing for the whole day the other day was the smartest thing to do. But I get frustrated being sick. I can't stand it. I'll try to do what I can anyway, regardless, but it might have made it a little worse. Yesterday was a little touch and go the day before. But anyway, I'm back. Gotta get some voices heard. And got a lot of emails. Got a lot of emails, especially since I made the comments about the graduating RCMP. And a lot of more sensitive sided people got a little offended because they thought I was painting every single law enforcement or military guy with the same, or woman with the same brush, which obviously I wasn't. Stuff going after the people that were paid to go beat and suppress the innocent people in Eastern Canada, protest for the freedom. So anyways, I'm not gonna go on about that topic right now. I'm gonna do that on the Rumble channel. There's far too much to be shared on that topic, and we'll leave it at that. My country right now is consistently sliding into a communist state, is what it is. Can't call it anything else, but I'm gonna be doing a Rumble channel video for that shortly. Cooch, appreciate you, man. Appreciate your input and your email, and I'm gonna add your email into that video too, all right? We'll keep all those topics over there. And we'll carry on with that. So, but right now, let's get some voices heard on the topic that most of the people come here for now. And there's so many emails, you guys. I'm gonna start from the top of the list for the last couple of days. Why not? There's some brand new ones here. Go back and forth. It's easy right now for you to find the top. I'm still a little foggy between the ears from being sick, but I'm fine. Now listen to this. Mark this as read. A couple interesting stories for you to tell if you'd like. Hello Steve, my name is Zach Sparks, and I have a couple experiences to share with you, and I'm okay with you saying our names in the stories. I discovered your YouTube channel because my parents Tim and Deanna Sparks have seen all your videos and watch your new ones that come out daily. I grew up in a small town named Omak of Okanagan County in eastern Washington, where my parents still reside. It's about an hour away from the Canadian border along Highway 97. I have two stories for you to hear. One is more of just interesting, and the other scared the hell out of me. Okay, man. Omak. I'm familiar with Omak. There is a big powwow there every year, isn't there? Or once used to be or something. Some friends used to go to that. Omak, I remember that. The interesting one takes place at Duck Lake in the Sinlahican Valley, about an hour northwest of Omak. My dad and Uncle Carl loved camping and took us often when I was young. This specific. All right, this camera keeps shutting off by itself. I don't know why. I think it's probably because it's freezing cold. I read somewhere along that the camera will do that, and I think there's some other SD card confusion going on with it. Whatever, I'll sort it out later. But I'm gonna switch up cameras right now to carry on. Now working? All right, let's try this camera. The only unfortunate part about this camera is this is the brand new one I bought for $1,400 or $1,600 just a couple months ago, and I had it in the house for about 1 hour on the tripod, and that little goat came into the house and went by the tripod, knocked it over, and broke it. The battery blew off of it, so I got the battery taped on it. And but the unfortunate part about this camera, it'll continue recording, but inside the memory, it records X amount on the SD card, then it stops and creates another video file. So when those files are joined on the edit program and going smoothly, when it comes to that cut that the camera did, that's where the audio knocks out for about 3 seconds. And that's what's happening when you guys hear my voice disappear for a couple seconds. It's this damn camera. Can't win. But anyway, so there you go, you guys. Let's get back into this one, all right? This specific trip was roughing it. Camping trip during the middle of winter on the furthest area at the back of the lake. We built a big fire and would set up cots all around. No trailers, no tents. Hand warmers, the fire, and our personal gear with sleeping bags and as few things as we could. We were no survivor men, but it was fun to try and rough it up. We put down a large tarp next to the fire and put our cots and gear on it. Then tied one side of the tarp up to make a type of lean-to. It was late in the night. We were sitting in our sleeping bags. There were huge snowflakes falling and snow falling off the trees all around us in large amounts. It was fun to listen to and watch as large quantities would fall from the top of the trees, taking out snow all over branches below and plopping onto the ground. Suddenly, the snow in the tree behind our tarp/lean-to fell from the left to right abruptly and must have been in large quantities, with some of it brushing across the back of the tarp. We thought that it was very weird, brushed it off, and did not think much about it after that. Let me explain that the snow had never done this. This sounded like a stampede, ran from left to right behind us, and that an animal brushed the tarp as it ran by. The more we thought about it, the less it made sense. Of course, we were not worried and never walked behind the tarp to see if there were tracks of any sorts, but I wish I would have. I've done a lot of camping in the snow just like that, with the same conditions, and never had snow fall in order from left to right perfectly to produce the sound of something big running by. This could have just been the way the snow fell. Maybe the wind blew the branches in the right way to make snow fall for 20 feet or so in a line, going from one side to another, with a bit of brushing the tarp behind us. Or maybe it was something else messing with us, who knows? We've always camped in that spot and never had anything like that happen ever again. We still talk about it every once in a while, and when I come to Omak to visit them. Now on to the story I'll never forget. I was 19 years old with my girlfriend at the time up at Omak Lake on the Colville Reservation, about 15 minutes out of Omak at Mission Side, which is a native-only section of the lake. My girlfriend at the time was native, so we decided to hike up to the cove between the Mission Side and the Beer Can Beach, which is the lake access for all people. We took off walking and turned to head straight at the mountain around 10 a.m. We climbed really far up and noticed that we were higher up than I'd ever been. I could see that there was a rock slide at some point before on the side of the mountain that left many good-sized rocks all over the hill. We climbed into the thick of all the large rocks. Some of them were extremely large and close together. They were roughly 10 feet tall, and we were walking through them on top of the bed of rocks. Suddenly, she looked down and calmly called my name. I walked a few feet forward to where she was and looked down. There's a hole through this bed of rocks about 2 feet in diameter. I could see the floor, what I now realized was a cave. We were standing on top of a cave. The entrance was below us, about 20 feet to my left. What I saw through the hole was the biggest buzzkill I had ever had. A perfect day turned into a frightful one. What I could see down in this area of the cave was a pig. The pig's head was ripped off with the tongue hanging out of the side of the mouth, sitting right side up next to the body. The body was ripped open and the guts were hanging out everywhere. What frightened me the most is that it was fresh blood. This thing was not decomposing. It may have been alive not too long before I saw it. I'm not one to fright super easy, but all of a sudden I had the biggest fear I've ever had flow through every limb on my body. I was not just scared, I could literally feel the fear. It was really hard to explain, but I could feel my body begin to shake a little bit. I turned around and told her that I knew the car was roughly this way and that we needed to make a beeline for it quickly. I told her not to run, but to walk quickly and to watch your footing. She walked in front of me and I kept my head on a swivel the whole time we were walking. We luckily did make it exactly to our car after walking a few hundred yards and having to slide down a big mossy hillside. We got in the car and got the hell out of there. Still to this day, I've never seen a wild boar anywhere in eastern Washington, nor have I ever heard of any animal that rips the head off its prey. Anyone can believe me or not, but my story is the truth. I've spent much time in the woods and I've never had a freaky encounter like that ever again. Sadly enough, I always have my pistol with me, but for some reason I decided not to take it that day. I thank God for that lesson too. Always carry while in the woods. I'm glad I did not have to learn the lesson in a harsh way. Several years later, my parents started listening to your channel and heard the stories of people having fear run through their bodies like they have never had before. My parents wondered if something put that fear in me that day to get the hell out of the area, or was it just because something that random and gruesome does not pop up in my daily life and led me to be extremely afraid? It sure felt like something put the fear in me that day. I believe in Sasquatch for many years now, and I'm happy to be able to share my stories with you. Thank you for listening, Zach. Appreciate it, Zach. So the Olmecs, that's going to be south of BC, right? Not too far from BC. Now, I haven't heard of any wild boar sightings in BC. I do know that there are some high fence wild boar hunts that go on in Saskatchewan. I heard a rumor that there's some in Alberta, but I've also heard there is, for a fact, there is some wild hogs have gotten loose in Saskatchewan. I believe there's some running around Alberta. And I heard a couple slight rumors of some wild hogs running around near Hope, which sounds odd to me. Rainforest, right? Not much. Well, I mean, those things can survive in anything. But after I've spent a lot of time in the southern U.S., Texas, where we've been shooting those hogs every single night of the week, and they just don't stop coming. It's a plague. And I try to tell people up here in Canada, if you ever see one of those wild hogs, you better dust it, because they're invasive and they are a living little plague. It's like 6 months old, a female's sexually mature, and they have 2 litters a year. 2 litters a year each, and to stay on top of the existing population, you have to kill off 75% of them a year. So it's virtually impossible. But anyway, getting back to your story, I just thought I'd relay that to you from what I know about where you can find wild hogs in BC, which isn't too far from where you were, which is basically nowhere. So that'd be interesting. I don't think you left a description of the hog. It's called a pig. Was it a wild boar hog? Did it have fur on it, or was it domestic? Either way, it doesn't really matter, does it? But one thing what would be interesting would be if possibly a handful of you went back there and maybe videotape that cave. Go up and have a look at it. That'd be really interesting. And as most people know, especially people who are familiar with how predators act, not much hauls a whole hog into a cave here in North America to devour it, and not much beheads there. I don't think there isn't any prey animals that I know of that intentionally behead an animal before they start to eat it. Actually, none do intentionally. It's not a normal act. So I think I've relayed what predators do to you guys before. What predators do with their game, their kills. And a grizzly will kill their animal, bury it. They don't cut the head off. They bury the animal under a mound of dirt, and they'll lay on top of it. If it's too far in the open, then they'll go off and they'll sleep in the thick bush right near it. And the reason they bury it is to hide it from the birds, because the birds will clean up a moose in like less than 2 weeks. Cougars, same thing. Cougars usually rip open the entire chest cavity, go for the heart, the liver, and lick the blood out first. And they do not cut the head off the animal initially. Wolves, they completely shred the carcass into a million different pieces, and they eat absolutely everything. The whole skeleton, the feet, everything. I think they do not eat the teeth, but at times, because of the way they feed on the carcass, the head will eventually get separated from that carcass as they shred the whole thing. Never would any wolf intentionally just work at ripping the head off of its kill and then pull the guts out. It's not going to happen. So there you go. Thought I'd give you guys an update on what I know about how natural predators treat their kills here in North America. Black bears, same thing. Black bears will, they don't dig up the dirt like a grizzly bear does, but I have watched a black bear on a kill that I made, I think 2 days previous. What was left there, he actually tore pine boughs off of the trees, small Christmas trees, and put them on top of it. And he was right there with it. So black bear will somewhat try to cover it a little bit, but they don't pinch the head off. But anyway, that would be alarming to find that. I can somewhat relate in a little bit. One time I had a hunter behind me. We were off of our horses walking down a game trail in the remote northeastern Rocky Mountains of British Columbia. and it was evening, and the cool air was sinking, so that means, take note of that, the cool air was already dropping down, there was no wind, but that meant that the wind was at my back dropping down the valley ahead of me. And it was just after rainfall, maybe half an hour light left, and there was massive grizzly prints, fresh in that muddy trail, facing me. He was coming up the trail, you could see where he put double prints. This is probably sniff them, and they stepped off the trail to let us by, which they always do. As far as I'm concerned, the main game trail, I call it up north or wherever, the public highway, right? And I called my hunter up, he's from Mexico. I called him up, said, come here, check out these monster grizzly bear tracks. He's like, wow, is it a big one? And I go, it's a freaking huge bear, yeah. And we were in thick spruce. Thick spruce with lots of muskeg around, somewhat side hill and going downhill. And then I'm walking along I walked on top of his prints for another, I don't know, 40 yards. And I told my hunter, I said, he's right here listening. He's listening to us speak right now. He's in these trees right beside us right now listening to us speak. No big deal. I'm not too worried about it. It happens all the time. But then I walked about 40 meters down, and here's this cow moo. I look around, I'm like, oh, something just happened here. And all the fluffy moss that's typically underneath that northern spruce patch, almost muskeggy moss, you can just tell something just happened here. I'm walking along thinking to myself, man, something just went down here. I looked over on the low hillside of the horse trail right there, 8 feet from me, is a cow moose on her back with steam coming out of her nostrils and blood coming out of her mouth. And that big, huge grizzly bear had just ambushed and dummied that moose right there on the trail. Thank God it was an older boar, because he's mature and he knows. He knows that we weren't stalking into it. He knows we weren't sneaking up on him. He knows it's just by chance we're coming down the public highway, and he just made a kill on it, and he stepped off to the side to let us go by, which is amazing, because a lot of big grizzlies will kill you instantly when you walk up on them on their kill. But he hadn't really even laid into it yet. It wasn't buried, nothing. But I'm telling the story to relate to you, Zach, because this is one of the only times I had something somewhat similar happen. And everything went inside of slow motion. I was looking at my hunter, get on your horse, because your safest place is on your horse when you're bumping the grizzly bear, okay? And I'm going, get on your horse, get on your horse, get on your horse. And I'm getting on my horse, and it's like slow motion, throwing your leg over the saddle, and his back is like, it felt like slow motion because you're just waiting for those teeth to clamp into your ass cheek behind you. Because that grizzly just killed that moose. It's thick timber, and he's right there with you. And thankfully, he let me go by. But anyways, get back to the terror feeling. Just so you know, I did not feel dread and terror when that happened. There's no feeling of trespassing or get out of here or you're going to die. There's none of those classic feelings that people are reporting when it comes to these other experiences, right? The only feeling I had was a bit of panic, adrenaline blast for sure, because everything slowed down. And I just needed to get on top of that horse as fast as I could. And then we rode we kicked her in a high gear and ran the horses down that horse trail and got out of Dodge. And that grizzly bear let us do it. But I'm saying why I'm sharing that is because there was no terror, doom, dread, most terror and frightening feeling I've ever had in my life. None of that applied. And if all of you are familiar with grizzly bears and kills and being in the middle of nowhere, that's probably about the worst thing that you can have happen in North America. One of them, for me, probably in the top 10, is bumping into a mountain grizzly bear kill in the middle of nowhere in thick bush. That's about as worse scenario as I could ever come up with for anyone venturing in the woods in North America. And I'm sharing that to let you know I've done it, and it doesn't bring terror and absolute soul-wrenching fright. Okay? So what you shared, Zach, tends for me to think that you definitely had somewhat almost encountered with something that most of us aren't familiar with. But it would be cool if you could somehow get a handful of people, arm yourself to the nuts, whatever it takes to feel secure. Go back to that cave, videotape it, man. Show us how big it was. See what else might be around there, just for the hell of it. Or not. I'd go there with you if I was close enough. Obviously, it wouldn't feel too good to go do it alone, but keep us posted, all right? Thanks for sending that in. Here's another one. Never saw it, but it drove us out of the woods at night. Hello, Steve. Long-time listener. First-time emailer. Prefer to leave my name out of it. You got it. My story isn't as involved as some of the others I've heard on your channel, but I'm betting there are countless more like mine who might need to hear this so they know they're not crazy. I've been going to Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in northern Minnesota since the early 2000s, and I haven't missed a year. The fishing and the relaxation in nature is a welcome annual ritual. October 2019 was the first fall trip I had taken with a friend of mine. We'd both been in the woods before on our own trips. The first one with the both of us, and the first one I'd taken in the month of October. I picked a familiar lake. We were on the water by 1 and to our island campsite by 5 p.m. We set our tent up, hung our food to avoid bears, and set off on the island to gather firewood. The first sign of something being off were the loons circling the island. We saw them do this for 20 minutes or so and just kept collecting firewood. We worked for almost an hour in silence, something that might bug me at home, but was just fine in the woods. The silence was fine until my friend told me we needed to leave. I thought he was joking at first. I've been trying to take this trip for years. He's the kind of guy who might try to get a rise out of me. That was not the case. My friend told me his heart had been pounding for an hour, and he had been feeling this impending dread since we got to the island. He had been quiet for the hour to see if it would go away on its own, and when it hadn't, he felt he had to tell me. I went back and forth, not wanting to convince him, but not understanding why we needed to leave. He could not nail it down, but something in his gut had told him we could not stay there. After 2 hours of talking, it getting dark and my friend becoming more and more frantic about leaving, I said, okay. We packed our stuff and got into the canoe at dark. My wife had stopped me as I left to give me my high-powered flashlight, and I'm here today because I had it. Fog had descended and we could not see with our headlamps, but the light I brought helped us navigate the lake and get back to the car. We loaded up, drove to a campground 40 miles away, and my friend went to bed without a word. He still won't say what happened or what he thinks it was. But after listening to your channel and Sasquatch Chronicles, I now look at this and several other experiences and see where these entities have interacted from afar. I've had multiple experiences in the woods feeling watched. Some where my group of six all decided to pass one campsite to later discuss how there was something watching us and we dared not talk about it while we were still at the site. Keep doing what you're doing. The truth may be dark and seem frightening, but the real world always seems that way in comparison to an illusion. Embrace the truth, and you'll find the light. Godspeed. Amen. Thanks. One thing, if your sixth sense isn't in tune and somebody you with is, they have a gut feeling, you go with it. That's very, very key. It's very important in our world today. You go with it. All right. If I can stress to anybody, especially children, if you're in company of a child, or a canine, child or a canine is absolutely alarmed beside themselves and you're in the woods, you leave. You listen to them. You don't argue with them. If I could offer up any kind of advice. Recent encounters have opened my eyes even more. As the title of this new email in. Hope that you're able to get around to my email since you're flooded with important emails. Every single one's important. I'm a subscriber and I've been watching on YouTube for a few months now. Feel free to share any and all information sent, especially the attached picture. I have no reason to lie, and I'm not afraid of anyone in heaven, hell, or on the earth. I've made peace with God as far as everyone else. They can whip me and they can't eat me. My name is Clinton. Gross. I don't give a shit about what anyone thinks. Right on, brother. I won't share a location other than northeastern Mississippi because I don't want to attract any crazy investigators. Northeastern. I'm familiar with northwestern Mississippi. DeSoto County. I'm originally from southeast Missouri, where I've seen and heard strange things in the past, but not like I've experienced here in Mississippi, or with the same frequency. Seems like if you spend any amount of time outside at night, you feel, hear, or see something. Within the first few nights here, I noticed the coyotes yapping, which is not abnormal for most places. I've been all over the United States working as a construction superintendent. and or a construction crew leader. But the coyote's yapping here is kicked off by what sounds like a wolf howling. A little strange because I've never known of coyotes and wolves running or packing together. Ever since I've been here, however, over half the time I'm outside at night, I feel like I'm being watched. Last fall I was on the carport late at night. I just finished putting a front hub and lower A-arms in my Nissan. It was around 1 in the morning. I just gotten my tools put away, and I was sitting in the front seat with the door open. Right foot on the rocker panel, left foot on the ground, looking at my phone, which had gone almost dead. So earlier, I plugged in the cigarette lighter when the motion light on the front of the house came on. So I turned my head straight over my right shoulder to see what had caused it to come on. Saw nothing. Not particularly unusual, but after it had went back off for about 20 seconds, it came on again. And so again, I turned my head instantly and saw nothing. Thought to myself, that's strange. The third time it came on, turned my head instantly and even leaned toward the passenger side rear window to look toward the ground, thinking maybe my cousin had left the chihuahua out, but it was too short for me to have seen it the first 2 times. Still, I saw nothing. Now the motion light stays on for about 30 seconds, and each time it would be off around 10 to 20 seconds. Approximately 20 seconds after it went off the third time, I heard something growl at me. Eesh. Now I've been all over the country, hunted and fished most of my life ever since I was old enough to walk. I've heard most every noise that the known native animals make, but I've never heard a growl like this before. It was too human to be animal, but too animal to be human, if that makes any sense to you. It kind of doesn't to me. Laugh my ass off. Anyway, so there's a Milwaukee flashlight in my floorboard right in front of me, so I grab it, immediately spin and take off after it. The only thought being in my head at this moment was, if it's sneaking up on me, it's afraid to face me eye to eye. Thankfully, looking back, it ran. I continued pursuit. I remember thinking if it's running from me, it's scared of me. I think maybe my response caught it off guard because I had nothing to attack or defend myself with except a 3-inch blade folding knife that I hadn't even drawn. Thing recording? Yep. Thank God himself that it ran because this thing was fast. Imagine something so fast that in 30 yards pursuit through the wide open, unobstructed yard, I never even caught it with the beam of the flashlight. I pursued all the way to the wood line where I only knew it entered because of hearing leaves and brush crackle thrashing, where it cleared a 3-foot high barbed wire fence where I broke pursuit. I guess my better sense had caught up with me. Speed and agility alone made me no match for this thing. Something so fast that you can't put a flashlight beam on it. Not to mention that when it hit the woods, it sounded like it left the ground and went to the trees. Looking back, possibly I handled the situation best. If I had done nothing, possibly it would have came in on and gotten a hold of me. I say that because looking back, my thought goes to the fact that I stalk things to kill that I'm not afraid of. I stalk them because I don't want to run them down or physically cannot run them down. A night or two later, my cousin said that something had been in the burn barrels where we burn trash. We could hear something in the burn barrels again this night, so we let our pit bull, Maya, out, who was scared of absolutely nothing, we thought. She ran only halfway to the burn barrels in the backyard in full attack mode, but came instantly back with a tail tucked between her legs. Something that I or anyone else has never seen or heard of from her before. From her before. Many times since then, I've heard whoops at night, usually 2 or 3 at a time. My cousin said the other night she thought it was me cutting up. I said, "Really, Rita? You think that I can whoop loud enough that you could hear for several miles?" There's not any question here so far. I just know what I know and believe what I believe, period. My question comes in the fact that I'm remodeling a house of my own to move into. Just a few miles from my cousin's house, where I currently stay and had the encounter, where you could still hear those same whoops from. When I was exploring the property a couple weeks ago, there was an old smokehouse 60 or 70 yards across the grown-up yard property being uninhabited for several many years. Inside the old smokehouse, I found this head and bones laying on the concrete floor. Rather than going in and out the wide open door, the siding is peeled back on the back side of the smokehouse, where something has been going in and out frequently. I At first I thought it was a pit bull head, but I guess I looked at it a minute too long, henceforth the picture. Ever seen anything like this? I myself have not. I know the hide was shrank a little, but the nostrils are far up on top of the snout to be a pit bull or any type of canine. Also, canine typically have a square front of the snout, not rounded, and the front teeth are wide spade shaped like humans. It's obviously not human, but doesn't fit the description of Sasquatch either. Please share the picture, because I'm puzzled. Thanks for what you do. I never expected to hear sensible, rational-minded people talk about things of this nature. People who have known me all my life and know that I am rational with good common sense, that I'm not easily excited, look at me like my cheese is slid off my cracker when I talk about what I've experienced over the last couple of years. P.S. Those are normal-sized bricks in the picture, approximately 8 by 2 by 3 inches. Beside the head, just to give you a reference. Alright, here's a picture. I'll post it up on the video for you guys to look at. It's obviously canine to me right off the bat. It's highly dehydrated, obviously. Right off the bat, to me, that looks wolf. If I think about it, I'll even post up a wolf skull that I have photographed, alright? But that looks like a wolf to me. Actually, I think I have a wolf right here that I can show you guys. I'll do it right now, alright? 1 second. Alright. I'll just hopefully can take a look at this. So this right here is what a that's a large grizzly bear skull right there. Alright, check that out. I think the angle of that picture is like that. So that's what a large grizzly bear skull looks like, alright? This is an ancient, huge, old cougar skull. Snub face. See that? It's a big old cougar. See all of his fangs are snapped off, ground off. Old, big old cat. This is a wolf. It's an old wolf. It's missed a bunch of teeth. That is what a wolf skull looks like. I think that's what the angle was in that photograph. Something like that. Hold on. I'll pose it down. Let me take a look at this picture for a second. I'll put it in the exact same angle. Alright, so it's laying on its side. So to you guys, it would be like, what would that be? On its side? Alright, hold on. It'd be like that. Alright, I'm just trying to somewhat get the right angle for that to compare it to for the photograph, right? A little closer here, I can see it. Anyway, there you go. Oh, maybe that's even better like that. Like that? How's that? Oh, there we go. Now I'm getting it. All right, there you go. That's the best comparison I can do fresh off the bat to compare a wolf skull with your photograph, all right? But anyway, if you're really that concerned about it, yep, there's tons of flesh there to get it, to get the DNA scraped off. And the nostrils, the only reason the nostrils are back there is there's no meat left on it and it's all dehydrated. As you can see, the skull right here has the same shape, right? But anyway, there you go. There's only one photograph. All right, so thanks for that share, man. And the speed. Is that you that just said about the speed? Yeah, the speed thing. All right. The speed thing is possibly almost every single person who's noted the speed of these things they've seen out there is what was, quote, the scariest thing was how fast it moved. I don't know how many times people have told me that, and I know people firsthand that told me the same thing. Said it was so fast, it was absolutely unbelievable. And just the fact, the speed part scared the shit out of them. And I think a little while ago we had somebody email in that something did 500 yards in deep snow in a matter of seconds. And probably a bunch of people shook their head like, yeah, right. But meanwhile, you gotta understand, that's been reported thousands of times. It's the speed and the power, right? Obviously, it's gonna sound unbelievable, obviously, to us. But it's getting a little more believable more and more as we hear from thousands of people telling the truth of what they witnessed but didn't ask for, right? So there you go, another one. Hopefully that helps somebody with their puzzle piece. Okay, I'm gonna mark this as red. Here we go, it's another recent email in, all right? My name is Barbie Mayes. Yes, you can use it. Sorry if this is long. Someone said to me that when I got my screen printing equipment out of storage, I should print some Sasquatch sweatshirts for her. I laughed and said, sure, I like Sasquatch. I had not thought about the possibility of such creatures since the funny hoaxer stories a friend told me years ago. A few mornings later, I woke up with the thought, I need to know about this. That process led me to your channel almost a year ago. At first, I was simply pleased to have answers for previously unexplained experiences. To tell them all would take too long, but they include boundaries, mind speak, pressure, a tall man dressed all in black, heavy bipedal footsteps, an abandoned camp with sleeping bags molding in the tent, and a force field of fear. My first experience with that level of fear was when I was 4 years old and had an ongoing, unquestionably demonic experience, which is a story of its own. Through it, the wisdom of my mother, I met and fell in love with Jesus. Calling on him made the terror end. Right on. I understand some people get angry, thinking God is as real as most people think Sabe to be. I get it, because until you know, you can't believe it could be true, and it can be a disturbing thought. Another club of no return. Raised in the mountains of western Washington State, with our closest neighbors a mile away through thick woods, I had an idyllic childhood. I spent it playing in the woods alone or with my sister from the age of 2.5. Mom didn't think anything of letting us romp around unattended. You read a couple of encounters from our area, and my mom and sister and I rehashed some odd experiences for which we had no answers. We concluded Sabe probably lived right next door. I found their house quite near our own, or maybe it was more like a hunting blind for watching us. It was a circle, perhaps a dozen feet across, of live vine maple, neatly woven together to make an upside-down basket-like dome, 9 or 10 feet tall. Inside was a smooth, hard-packed dirt with nothing growing. I discovered I could climb up the outside and bounce on top of it like a trampoline. The leaves were so soft that after bouncing around for a while, sometimes I would take a nap up there. I called it my air bed. My sister came with me a few times, but then told me emphatically, I don't like it here. I'm never coming back. She was always more sensitive than I. I continued to play there, sometimes feeling watched. A couple of times I came down and needed to pee, but was uncomfortable because I felt something watching. So I went inside the dome for privacy. After the second time, I was never allowed to go back. I can't say I really blame them. I wouldn't want them peeing in my house either. I couldn't tell you who said I couldn't come back, but somehow I knew it was off limits after that. Wow, that's pretty bizarre. I found a deep, dark portion of the forest that felt creepy, so I was about to leave it when a ray of sunshine pierced the canopy and illuminated a pond beside which sat a toad the size of a small dinner plate. Of course, I had to catch and play with it. I always felt watched, but decided it was the price I had to pay to see the toad. Every day possible, I would press into the creepiness and go see my toad. I guess I don't blame them for watching. I would watch a tiny child making friends with a huge toad too. I couldn't go for a few days, and when I went back, she apparently missed me as well because she entered the water and swam over to meet me. She got all blinky-eyed when I massaged her tummy. Sadly, that was the last time I ever saw her. My mom decided summer camp would be good for small children. She got a job there so we could spend a couple months every year as staff brats. I wouldn't trade my childhood for anything, but life still had its pain. When we returned home, I was horrified to see a large chunk of land had been logged, including the home of my toad. I was 4 years old and went out into the logged over area, bawling my eyes out over the loss of my playground, and especially my toad friend. Suddenly I felt dizzy and disoriented and found myself running downhill away from the house against my will. During the previous winter, I'd been rescued by from terror by calling on Jesus according to my mother's instruction. So now I call on him again. Jesus, help, I cried out. Immediately I thought to yell for Mom, something I did not generally do. She was up on the roof of the house she was building and heard me and called back. I followed the sound of her voice as we called back and forth, all the while I'm fighting this force that is trying to pull me in the opposite direction. When I entered our yard, the dizzying pull left me. Crazy. Now that we know about Sebe, my mom wondered if I had been pulled away, if I would have joined the ranks of the missing. I'm not only thankful to you and your contributors for answers for odd past experiences, but also for the education I need to face with peace what happened to me yesterday. And I want to ask everyone a question. Years ago, a girlfriend and I went to one of those commercial enterprises that capitalized on the magnetic anomalies present with the vortex. They pointed out the twisted trees. Some were corkscrew shaped and some were kind of curved to make a seat. They said if it were just a few trees like that, it could be caused by damage. If there were a lot, it probably meant a vortex. I think of that whenever I see deformed trees. So I'm wondering if there is any connection to, say, a portal or something. And has anyone noticed a correlation between numerous Sebe sightings and those oddly shaped trees? I live in Montana now, and yesterday, February 20th, 2022, I went looking for a piece of property to buy. My realtor got sick, and when I found out, I was already on the road, so I went alone. I managed to get stuck in the snow at the end of the road. Many of the trees were shaped like I described. At home, my mom and husband both had a sudden intense feeling that I was in trouble and they should pray for me. Then Mom called me. I had cell service, amazingly enough, and told her I'd just gotten stuck. I told her I was going to try a few things, and if I could not get the job done, I would walk to the closest house and ask for help. I'd no sooner gotten off the phone with her than my husband's cousin called and told me to call a tow truck. Had my husband been able to call me, I knew he would have said the same thing. So when I couldn't get unstuck, I made the call. While I waited, I walked into the woods, checking out the parcels for sale, chatting with my mom. For the first time in my life, I had doubts about whether I should be out there alone. When I heard voices in the woods below the road, I said, "Hang on, Mom, I need to listen for a minute." The voices rang loud and clear, and yet I could not make out the words. It sounded like a happy, well-adjusted human family having a great time romping on the heavily fallen snow. One voice that was of a little girl screaming and giggling in delight. If I had not already called a tow truck, I might have gone to ask them for help. I told Mom, "Never mind, it's just a family out playing." My first concern came when I started hearing deep guttural growls that sounded for all the world like a good-natured dad being teased by his kids, but it was not a human sound. Then, there were what could only be called tree knocks. So I remember the stories I heard in your channel. I walked quietly back to the pickup and got in. The windows were fogged up, so I lowered the window just enough to watch for the tow truck. Mom was telling me a story, so I didn't interrupt, but while she was talking, 4 creatures come out of the woods to the side of the road. They were covered in long, super thick, dark brown hair that looked to be 8 inches long. Sometimes they walked like people, sometimes they moved on all 4s like gorillas. At no time did they resemble bears. The 2 small ones climbed up and down on the road embankment. All of them would stand up and then squat down and just look like stumps until they moved to a different location. The mother must have been 7 feet tall because she looked substantially larger than a human man, and definitely taller than my 6'4" husband. Holy shit. The big one stood up with his back to me, looking to be a minimum of 8 or 9 feet tall, and started rocking back and forth. Then suddenly the family scampered in the woods. When they were out of sight, he dropped down, moving like a gorilla, galloped out of sight. I said in a low voice, "Oh, Mom, I figured out why you guys needed to pray for me. I just saw a whole family of Sasquatches," she said. She said, You didn't. Tell me about it." So I told her what I'd just seen and ended with, "But I don't know what upset them and why they ran away." "Oh, yes, I do. There's the tow truck coming." When the driver got out to talk to me, I could see 3 of them come back out to the side of the road. They stood up and squatted down and played around. The big guy was not with them. I said nothing to the driver about what I was watching over his shoulder. Perhaps I was feeling a little protective of the happy family. Holy shit, really? I took a couple of pulls to get me unstuck. While he was adjusting his equipment for the second pull, I stepped out of my pickup. I glanced up in time to see a monster shadow flash between the trees. If I had blinked, I would have missed it. There was eye contact for the tiniest fraction of a second, but I was left with the impression of surprise that I had seen him. I'll bet his torso was as tall or taller than my whole 5'3" body. Also, the movement was not the same as before. This was less natural and more like a spirit being. There was never any fear because they didn't see me until the tow truck got there. But I cannot imagine the dad being pleased that I saw his family. I followed the tow truck out and was happy to leave, and very happy not to have walked past them for help or be stuck there overnight. Thanks again, Steve, for the education that made this experience better and safer than it could have been. You very well may have saved my life. God bless you and keep you safe. We're praying for you and all the brave people fighting for freedom in Canada. Barbie Mass. Mass, I hope I pronounced your name right, Barbie. Thanks for that email. And that just happened the other day and there's snow on the ground. I'll guarantee you there's probably going to be dozens of people commenting in the comment section saying, well, there's another sighting in snow and nobody went up and took the pictures of footprints. Right? Everybody's going to be saying that. So possibly, maybe, grab your family and go up there and see if you can possibly see some footprints. They'll still be there. If it hasn't dumped a pile of snow since you emailed me, there's going to be some kind of prints in that snow, right? Should be anyway, but it's never a guarantee. And one thing I want to take note when you're describing that dome, that woven branch dome, I've heard some people mentioning finding nests. They call them nests, where Sasquatch are nesting. Now, just so all of you know, it doesn't matter what type of bed it is or what type of the game. I'll talk about game animals, all right? Like here in British Columbia, especially on the coast, for black-tailed deer as an example, I can go up a steep mountain in the big timber, zero in on the biggest fir trees I can find in the timber patch, and I'll basically bet the farm there's going to be a deer bed at the base of that tree. That's where they lay. And I don't even have to guess about it, what type of bed it is. I can stand on top of it and look without squatting down, I'll look down and 100% guaranteed there's going to be deer fur in that bed. 100% guaranteed. So, I'm just saying this is a quick mention for all you people that think you find a Sasquatch nest. Why don't laugh? I'm not being sarcastic. I just think it's humorous to me. People think they make nests like a frickin' bird, but anyway, you find a place where you think that may be the case. If it is any kind of a nest or a bed or 110% guarantee there's going to be hair there. If it is what you believe to be any kind of a nest or a bed or a resting area, there's going to be hair in it. 100%. I've found numerous bears have laid down, same thing. There's bear hairs, fur hairs, whatever you want to call it. Single strands of fur laying there on the ground. Moose, elk, sheep, especially mountain goats, same deal. Every single, including us. Wake up in the morning, check your pillow, see how many hairs are there from just one night's sleep, right? It's a fact. Whoever has hair and fur, you shed it. It falls off, especially where we sleep and lay. That's about it. I've been doing a little bit of babbling so far. I had 2 coffees this morning. I got lots on the go, as usual, and lots to talk about on the other channel. There's a lot happening in my country, and the more my country slides into communism, which is not an emotional description, it's a fact, the more I have to think about how I'm going to go about playing my role in getting the truth out of the people about other truths, including this one's no problem, but I'm possibly going to have to keep other truths now more condensed and shared on the Rumble channel, I believe, and where it's possibly going to be more safe than it's not safe here. It's not safe here to share the other truths that are going on currently in my country anyway. My government's now seizing the bank accounts, freezing the assets of anybody against them. That's what they're doing. So, am I scared of my government? I'm not scared of shit. Do I need to be smart? I need to be smart. I need to use my mind. I'm getting absolutely flooded with emails from concerned people around the world, people I know, people who are very, very intelligent, far smarter than I ever dream I might be one day. But I'm listening to people, and it's the part of the game now is being smart, right? You got to be smart, not emotional and not reactive. You can't react with your emotions now. You just got to think and be smart and do the right, proper, smart thing. And I do have a substantial reach to the world, and that's something to consider when it comes time to being smart and playing your role smartly. But in the meantime, every single voice that comes my way is going to be heard through me through here, all right? And I will close on this. Remember my stance on this topic. Once you become a member of the Club of No Return, once you see something like this, which we've been talking about, the main topic we've talked about here, once you see, you know. Once you see, you know, you also instantly get punched in the face with the fact that we are being lied to and misled. All right? That is a fact. I can say that with absolute confidence. We're all being lied to and misled. Okay? I'll be back with more real soon. Be safe. Be smart.